I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. Thanks for choosing the latest episode of my weekly podcast, topics, issues, and stories from our lives.
Season 4, Chapter 9.
First World Problems.
First World Problems. It's usually a condescending retort to a relatively minor complaint. They're out of my favorite potato chips. I don't like my haircut. Man, it's hard to get a good signal here. First world problems. I thought that the term first world problems as a snappy comeback had run its course, but I was hit with it the other day on social media. Here's what happened. I had found out that my favorite soap was discontinued by the manufacturer. At my house, just for fun, we call them soap flavors, although I don't really recommend ingesting them, a la Tide Pods. Tide Pods, magically delicious. No. I guess with soap, it's a scent. And everyone has their favorite, right? I used to be hooked on lemon. The lemon scent. Nothing felt truly clean until the house was filled with the aroma of lemon. Then I discovered cucumber melon, and it was right around the time that hand washing became a Canadian law. I went full-on cucumber melon. Hand soap, dish soap, whatever I could get. It's an odd combo, isn't it? Yeah. I always wondered what mad Frankenstein scientist fused these two together in the soap lab dungeon. But it worked. Cucumber melon became my new standard of clean. And now, suddenly, not. You can't even find it on Amazon. If Amazon doesn't have it, it doesn't exist. So what do? I thought about going back to lemon, but that ship has sailed. That train has left the station. That romance is over. Let's face it, we'll never be able to rekindle the torrid love affair we once had. I looked around for a cucumber melon replacement. There's got to be something close. Oh, wait a minute, here's a watermelon and mint. Maybe. Basil and lime? No. Shea butter and cocoa? Don't think so. Citrus gardenia? Nope. Too flowery. Oh wait, here's midnight macadamia. What the hell is that even? These are all real soaps, by the way, and there are many others. Talk about a first world arrogance. You know, I just want to wash my hands 30 times a day, and believe me, I am grateful for my quick access to soap and water. But at the same time, I like to feel cucumbery and melony as I go about my day. Well, no, because they discontinued cucumber melon. Vanilla orchid coconut milk is somehow still with us, but not cucumber melon. Anyway, just for fun, I posted a little thing about my dilemma. Hey everyone, they discontinued cucumber melon, and bam! One of the first comments was, first world problems. Wow. So, number one, here's the deal. The first world. That's where I live. I live in the first world. And, like everyone else from time to time, I have problems. Problems related to that world. They come in all sizes, small, medium, large, and sometimes even XL. I think I'm pretty good at differentiating among them. Prioritizing them in order of importance and urgency. You know, my remote control needs new batteries, and there's a fire on the stove. Well, which one to deal with first? It's not a big fire, and my favorite show is coming up soon. No, but seriously, you know, most of us, I think, are generally pretty good and understanding about where our problems fit in the grand scheme of things. Let's face it, the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. No, wait. that's kind of a different topic. Later. From my little perch here in the first world, if I cannot once in a while lament about the loss of my favorite soap without someone judging me, well, then we really aren't the first world anymore, are we? I did mention at the top that first world problems is mostly a condescending retort. That's what I think it is. First world problems. Maybe I read some tone into that wasn't there, I don't know. Or maybe when it first started to be used, it was a playful reminder to us privileged first worldies that we have it pretty good compared to many others. We should just be thankful both for what we do have and for what we don't have to endure. That's good, right? I think that's all good. Let's all keep our perspective here. But then the phrase just became this social media response. People said it and used it without even thinking, just repeating the popular phrase of the day, first world problems. Yes, I know they are. What's your point? This might be a good time for this social media reminder. When you see something posted and it inspires a thought in you, you are not obligated to share it. You can just say nothing and move on. No, I'm serious. Look it up. Look up your Facebook and Twitter rules and regs. There's nothing in there that says you must comment. I know. Free speech. Good for you. But you also have the right to remain silent. And anything you say may be used against you in a court of public opinion. Whenever someone says to me, first world problems, Larry, I feel insulted. I guess that's my issue. But yes, I know. I know where I live. And just by sharing my little and often amusing, irrelevant problem, how in any way am I saying that this is important, urgent, or in any way even comparable to, say, having to hurriedly pack all of my belongings and my family into a car and race to a border to avoid being blown up by a Russian madman? I'm not. But are you using first world problems to imply that I'm doing that? Also, another important point. Many people can carry several thoughts in their head at one time. They can manage them and keep them in a workable order. What do you got, cancer? Wow, you think you got problems? They just discontinued my favorite soap. Unless you have some sort of psychosis, you're not going to be like that. I think I have my first world problems in complete control. First world problems, Larry, takes me back to my childhood. Finish your supper, young man. You know that there are children in blank that go to bed hungry. When I was a kid, the go-to country my parents used was China, but sadly now, over the decades, many different countries could fill in that blank. So I never understood how eating food I didn't feel like eating would help a hungry kid halfway around the world in any way. I get it. They were trying to teach me to appreciate what I have, waste not, want not, learn some empathy, all of that malarkey. But it wasn't really doing that, was it? It was just a parental guilt trip. Feel bad. Not because of what others have not, but because of what you have. Hey, Ma, put these peas and carrots in an envelope and mail them to China, because I'm not eating them. First world problems is just the 21st century version of that. It's the guilt trip. Interesting that in the 21st century we do put food in envelopes, in boxes and bags, and we do try and mail it to other parts of the world. At least every once in a while we try. First world problems, there I am at the kitchen table again. Dishes being cleared around me. And as a punishment, the whole world is yelling at me, first world problems, Larry, first world problems. The more I thought about this, the more I realized that I didn't really hear the term first world very much. Not until we started using this phrase, first world problems. Those of us in the first world never really called ourselves the first world, did we? And I realize that the first world is not really a geographical designation, per se. It's more of a reference to status. Previous to this first world designation we put upon ourselves, we referred to have and have not nations. That seemed much simpler than a numerical ranking. We're a have nation, they are a have not nation. Yet, the biggest similarity we both share is that everyone in both countries just wants more than they already have. They have not food, shelter, and proper clothing. We have not cucumber melon soap. Everywhere you go, nothing but problems. Now, we did refer to the have-not nations as the third world. Third world nations. Again, not geographical. It's their financial status that made them a third world country. We don't call them that as much anymore because you know who objected? The third world nations. Stop calling me that, you bully. It's not helping. Some stopped. Others did not. So we're in the first world, they're in the third world. You may ask, how come there are no second world countries? Well, there are, we just don't call them that. Who are the second world countries? Well, we don't assign them the number. We call them developing nations. What exactly are they developing over there? Well, it depends on what they got. Industry, labor, tourism, agriculture. Hey, somebody's got to grow those coconuts for the vanilla orchid coconut milk soap. It's interesting how, over time, many third world countries have not been able to do better than bronze on the economic podium, and how some developing nations just keep on developing until their backs are sore, but they just can't seem to enter that first world club. In some cases, it's because of the mighty forces, like storms and drought, a lack of natural resources, local politics, civil wars, et al. For some nations, it can be difficult to break the cycle of poverty. But there's an even mightier force upon these developing and third world nations. It's called the first world. It is in the interest of the first world to keep the poor, poor, and to keep the middle class, i.e. developing nations, in the middle. You become too big and too rich, the first world has a problem with you. Good example, China. And I understand we have some legitimate concerns about the power of China. But at the same time, not even the gigantic forces of the first world could control the economic growth of that nation. Russia is another prime example. And let me say unequivocally that Putin is a madman and should be stopped. But NATO? A small group of North Atlantic nations who formed post-World War II as a treaty organization to keep a military eye on the USSR. And they've expanded, despite the fall of the Soviet Union, to a group of 30 nations, many of whom aren't remotely connected to the North Atlantic. As I said before, NATO is the world real estate police. Russia knew it, they didn't like it. NATO is another first world organization, only with guns, and they are meant to control developing nations, which Russia was. Russia became a first world nation with the help of oligarchs and kleptocrats. How they got there is another discussion, but they did. They became a first world nation. Oil and gas. There was Starbucks, McDonald's, Facebook, Netflix. And now the first world is doing their best to drive them back to the Dark Ages. Yes, I know, Putin brought this on himself. But the 1991 loss of empire was never forgotten by the Russians, not just Vladimir. There is a first world problem. The first world problem is how do we maintain our first world status and control our exclusive membership? No one gets in unless we say so. And it's not just NATO. It's the EU, the EC, the G7, the G20, the IMF, the World Bank, and so on. First world subgroups. Really just slightly smaller exclusive clubs within the big exclusive club, the one they call the First World. Let's be honest, a lot of this First World, especially like North America and Europe, we are the biggest and most powerful members. We built that world on invasion, colonization, and a constant attention to economic dominance, backed, when necessary, with military might. That's the first world problem. We have not figured out the proper distribution of wealth and power because the first world premise is, in order for us to have more, others must have less. And it gets so bad for people in these developing and third world nations that eventually many of them lose hope. They give up. For thousands, actually millions, their best shot is to pack up and leave and make their way to the first world by any means possible, risking life and limb in the process. Earlier, I mentioned the famous movie quote from the airport scene in the film Casablanca, Bogart and Bergman. Rick says to Ilsa,
"It doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world."
As you may remember, that movie is set in World War II and opens with scenes of refugees fleeing Europe, looking for passageways to safety in America. Over these numerous decades, we have re-witnessed these scenes of fleeing migrants again and again and again in real life. Let's get to the first world. They're clinging to their belongings, clinging to their children, clinging to the last little glimmer of a dream that a better life exists just over there in the first world. Some of them can almost see it from where they are. So getting back to the term first world problems, those of us in the first world can easily become pretty self-absorbed in petty things and little issues that don't amount to a hill of beans. I think in many ways we have become spoiled, decadent, soft, pudgy, lazy, and maybe even self-righteous about it all. And worse, some of us have become possessive about it. Look at all those fleeing hordes. They want in. Lock the doors, board up the windows, build a wall. They're all coming here to take our jobs and use our soap. Yeah, we do. We do get self-absorbed and self-righteous. There's a lot of examples. Here's a quick one. Like maybe we shouldn't have food eating contests until everyone on the planet has at least one solid meal per day. Hey, Mr. Third World Starving Guy, over here, we have races to see who can eat the most, the fastest. That just never made sense in any world, frankly. In many ways, I think our pompous first world does need a reset. I thought that maybe events like COVID and a horrible war would make more of us stop, look, listen, and redefine what's important. As I already mentioned, I think that retorting with first world problems was a small attempt at that. It was used as a little reminder. Look how good you got it in the big picture. In the big picture, pretty nice. Maybe there were some good intentions when people started saying first world problems. Then, of course, it just became this repeated online remark. I say cucumber melon soap, and you say first world problems. Maybe you're the first world problem. Maybe you should back off a little and understand what the first world problems really are, the big ones. Because I'm just a tiny cog looking for soap. I don't mind sharing my concerns over soap flavors. I don't think it makes me a bad person, a non-caring person. As a matter of fact, maybe you should look for a new retort. Saying first world problem has become a first world problem. And there, I said it. I meant it. Now I'm just going to wash my hands of the whole thing. But where is that bottle of peachy grapefruit Jupiter explosion I just bought? Oh, here it is. Found it.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.